Preface of The Little Colonel's Chum, Ware. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. The Little Colonel's Chum, Ware, by Annie Fellows Johnston. Preface. Dear boys and girls who are old friends of the Little Colonel, when I finished the 8th volume of the Little Colonel stories, The Maid of Honor, I thought I had reached the end of the series, but such a flood of letters came pouring in demanding to know what happened next that I could not ignore such a plea, and in consequence, the Little Colonel's night came riding by. But even with Lloyd married and living happily ever after, her friends were not satisfied. You skipped, they complained by the hundreds. You never told what happened between the time of her engagement and the wedding, and you never told what happened to Betty and Joyce and Mary and Phil and all the rest of them. Even if you haven't time for another book, couldn't you just please write me a little letter and satisfy my curiosity about each character? Of course I couldn't begin granting all those requests, and finally I was persuaded it would be easier to answer your questions with a new book. So here's Ware, taking up the thread of the story at the first of the skipped places. The time is September, the same September that Betty went away to Warwick Hall to teach, and Lloyd began to prepare for her debut in Louisville. Now this volume covers only one short year, so of course I cannot tell you all you want to know, but if you are disappointed because it does not take you to the final milestone, remember that had we gone that far it would have been the end of all our journeying together. And we have it from our Tusitala himself, that best beloved of travelers, for whom in a far island of the sea was dug a road to last forever, that to travel hopefully is a better thing than to arrive. AFJ. End of preface. Chapter 1 of The Little Colonel's Chum, Ware. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. The Little Colonel's Chum, Ware, by Annie Fellows Johnston. Mary enters Warwick. The bus running between Warwick Hall Station and Warwick Hall School drew up at the door of the great castle-like building, with as grand a flourish as if it carried the entire senior class, and deposited one lone passenger upon the steps. As it was several days before the opening of the fall term, no pupils were expected so soon, and but few of the teachers had returned. There was no one to see the imposing arrival of the little freshman except the butler, who had been drawn to the front window by the sound of wheels. It devolved on him to answer the knocker this afternoon. In the general confusion of house-cleaning, the man who attended the door had been sent upstairs to hang curtains. That the newcomer was a prospective pupil, Hawkins saw at a glance. He had not been in Madame Chartley's service all these years without learning a few things. That she was overawed by the magnificence of her surroundings, he readily guessed, for she made no movement towards the knocker, only stood and looked timidly up at the massive portal and then across the lawn, where a line of haughty peacocks stood drawn up in gorgeous dress parade on the highest terrace. "She's feeling like a cat in a strange garret," said the butler to himself with a grin. It was a matter of personal pride with him when strangers seemed duly impressed by the grandeur of this aristocratic old manor house, now used as a boarding school. It was a personal affront when they were not. Needless to say, his dignity had suffered much at the hands of American schoolgirls, and although this one seemed impressed by her surroundings almost to the point of panic, he eyed her suspiciously. "Evan knows they lose their shyness soon enough," he said under his breath. "She can just cool her heels on the doorstep till she gets the courage to knock. It'll do her good." But she waited so long that he began to grow uneasy. After that first glance, she had turned her back on the door as if she repented coming, and, satchel in hand, stood hesitating on the top step, ready for flight. At least, that is the way Hawkins interpreted her attitude. He could not see her face. It was a plain little face, sunburned as a gypsy's, with a generous sprinkling of freckles on her inquisitive nose. But it was a lovable face, happy and eager, with a sweet mouth and alert gray eyes that seemed to see the bottom of everything. Sometimes its expression made it almost beautiful. This was one of the times. But she was not gazing regretfully after the departed bus as Hawkins surmised, but with a pleasure so keen that it fairly made her catch her breath. She was looking at the strange landscape
Sample complete. Ready to continue?